Now, we would like to invite a Master of Buddhist Studies to speak to us on science and happiness. We'll approach this topic from another perspective. Please allow me to first introduce our keynote speaker. This is our Khenpo Sodargye. Khenpo has especially long been concerned with the topic of happiness among young students and intellectuals. He has published numerous books, such as Suffering is Life, Doing is Obtaining, Cruelty is Youth, and so on, using Rinpoche's unobstructed wisdom to help all people remove afflictions and attain happiness. Around the theme of science and happiness, it mainly addresses the psychological and mental health issues currently prevalent among university students and teachers. In fact, at Shanghai Jiao Tong University, in classroom teaching and scientific research, a series of work has also been carried out, especially in 2015, with the establishment of the Shanghai Jiao Tong University Center for Brain Science and Technology, Decoding the Genes of University Students' Subjective Well-Being, the Scientific Basis of Meditation, and other interdisciplinary key projects. These research efforts are also the origin of our convening this Science and Happiness Symposium today. We all hope to decode happiness from different perspectives, explore ways to enhance happiness, and improve university mental health. This symposium is very honored to have invited the Venerable Khenpo Sodargye Rinpoche to give everyone a keynote address on the theme of spiritual practice and university students' happiness. This is Khenpo's compassion and also the honor of all representatives and everyone present. Now let us, with reverent hearts and happy, joyful minds, listen to the Master's teaching. Also, please, with warm applause,
Teachers and students, hello everyone. Today I'm here to briefly speak about spiritual practice and university students' happiness. Actually, it should be said that yesterday afternoon I also presented my views. As for myself, I think, if I'm speaking today, it's not so good. Previously, we've also held some World Youth Buddhist symposiums, and when one person appears multiple times, many people find it rather annoying. So I requested them, I won't speak today. But later they said, because the venue is different, the participants inside are somewhat different. So they insisted I also say a few words here. Later I said, then I'll try to shorten my time. Otherwise, originally this is a very happy matter, but if, in the midst of this, many teachers and students feel this monastic has come out again, and this instead produces a bit of unhappiness or suffering, I don't think that's very good. Later, they basically accepted some of their requests, so I also came out. As this symposium approaches its conclusion, I'll give everyone a simple sharing. After these 2 days of study, actually, the harvest has been very great. I myself believe that learning in human life is the most meaningful and also the longest lasting, most stable, truly genuine happiness. In our human lives, there are many, many things we ourselves think are happiness, but actually some of them on the surface seem like happiness, but in reality may become causes of later suffering. Or in the present moment, fleeting and ever-changing, they finally turn into suffering. In Buddhism, this is called the suffering of change, or the suffering of conditioned existence, or the suffering of suffering upon suffering. In that case, it's not necessarily very happy. Therefore, through this Science and Happiness Symposium, actually, I myself think this way. From various different dimensions and perspectives, we're expounding on this happiness. When some keynote speakers talk about happiness, everyone truly enjoys this kind of happiness. When some moderators and keynote speakers are presenting, everyone is in a kind of indescribable, inconceivable state. So indeed, people's inner minds follow along with the keynote speaker's words. Because many of us, our minds follow external circumstances. We haven't yet reached the state where circumstances follow our minds. At such a time, it's very possible that many people have indeed enjoyed a kind of happiness this time. In this big city itself, there are various family pressures, study pressures, work pressures, and so on. Every day, everyone is especially busy. Even perhaps many people just keep looking at their phones. When looking at phones, now they say there's WeChat dependency syndrome. Because every day you have to tap those red dots. If you don't tap them, you feel you haven't completed something. So every 5 minutes, you have to check. Every 10 minutes, you have to check. I'm thinking for half a day, if everyone can turn off their phones, this is also a happy thing. This is a kind of retreat. This is a kind of spiritual practice. Therefore, indeed, this time, in a certain sense, this is very meaningful. I especially like it, and it's from the heart. I also hope that the organizing universities, various teachers in the future, if there are such opportunities, they can provide everyone with something that's both highly academic and also from medicine, genetics, literature, and the arts, including religion and ethics from all these aspects. When observed from various dimensions, it's actually very meaningful. I just saw some experts, though they spoke for 20 minutes, but for these 20 minutes, they may have summarized a vast amount of domestic, international, worldwide information. In such a short time, they're infusing us with all this. We can barely accept it all. Such abundant materials, information, and wisdom, if they keep infusing us, sometimes our heads ache because in one day, various experts in a compulsory or artistic way are injecting us with so much knowledge. I think this is the most beautiful, most happy, most joyful moment. Therefore, also, especially perhaps physically, sometimes a bit tired. When we've held some symposiums in the past, we've held them continuously for 7 days. When holding them for 7 days, I also very seriously took notes the whole time. Whether university students were speaking or teachers were speaking, whether they had faith or not, we recorded it all. After recording, after some time, after 2 more years, when you look at it, it's very interesting. It has great nostalgic value. Moreover, what each person expounds from different perspectives all has value for preservation for us, all has practical use. So I think first, I especially want to thank the organizing institutions for providing us with such a learning opportunity. If we were to buy this on the market with money, the value should be very high. I think having so many experts for us to listen to, this isn't an easy thing. I'm also especially grateful. Today, what I want to speak to you about here is, actually our main topic today is, as university students, regarding university students' lives. Actually, all of you present here are very clear. Their pressure is relatively great. The reason their pressure is great is because many people may be preparing for future blueprints, planning for future life, including some people who are starting to draw their life's renderings. In the process of depicting, everything is very magnificent, majestic, but whether they can reach this goal, there's also a certain difficulty. These past few days in Shanghai, some people also said that now Shanghai housing prices have risen. 1 square meter costs tens of thousands of yuan. About 100 square meters, 80 square meters, probably several million. Then several million, as a university student who's just graduated, then relying on their meager salary to buy a house, I'm afraid it's very difficult. If they can't afford a house or can't afford a car, then establishing a family is even more difficult. As a young person, this kind of pressure has to be considered. Now, many people are very realistic. In such circumstances, perhaps some dreams of pursuing knowledge can easily be shattered. Some people may think very well, but on the path of life, when doing things, it's not so good, because they often haven't thought about the many negative and uncertain factors. On this point, today I've also heard many experts' presentations. In the presentation process, everyone knows whether in China or abroad, many young people's hearts have anxiety disorders, depression, even autism, and various different fears. These kinds of mental aspects that aren't very normal, more or less some symptoms. So these symptoms, they come from our pressure and from our unhappiness. How do we resolve this situation? I'll speak very frankly. I hope that all you students, all you classmates, when you're pursuing the most beautiful time in life, you must simultaneously think about that in life. There may also be many, many uncertain factors. For example, when I want to create my family in the future, or when I want to create very beautiful aspirations for my life, you should think that at this time, perhaps some problems will arise in my work, perhaps some problems will arise in my relationships, perhaps my own body, even my family, my relatives, and so on. If you consider bad factors, inauspicious factors a bit more, then later, on the path forward, when you encounter life's obstacles or setbacks, you'll be more strong, more tenacious. You can bravely and calmly face everything that happens in life. Otherwise, we think very beautifully, but later many things can't be realized. In our Tibetan area, there's a very famous story about Chandrakirti's father. I think many people can tell it. But today, I want to share with you in a light-hearted way a story from ancient Greece, from Aesop's fables. Perhaps many people have heard it. It seems the protagonist in this story is rather foolish, but actually, perhaps from her story, we can also find some shadows of ourselves. So how does this story go? It's said there was a milk-selling girl, the farm girl. Every day she would milk the cows. After milking, she'd pour it into a bucket, then carry it balanced on her head to the market to sell. One day, as she walked, she thought, if my milk today sells very well, I'll buy many eggs. These eggs will later hatch many chicks. Then these chicks, I'll wait until they grow a bit, then sell them to others and earn a lot of money. With the money I earn, I'll buy especially nice clothes. When I wear these clothes, I'll certainly be very beautiful. After wearing them, I can attend the Christmas party. At that time, many young men will be captivated. Someone may pursue me, propose to me. Then, at that time, I'll definitely refuse them until my Prince Charming appears. I'll refuse until then. As she thought this way cheerfully, she made a vigorous motion, shaking her head like this. When she shook her head, the milk on her head had already spilled on the ground. Finally, her dream and her milk were all spilled across the earth, came to nothing, gone from then on. But in the story, it doesn't say that later this woman committed suicide or got depression. It doesn't say that. I think, would we modern people be like this? You may also reflect on this. Listening to this story, it's very childish, ridiculous, naive. You feel there's no need, right? Today you think this way. Actually, this story, if we look at it from today's perspective, it may be very creative, very idealistic. We can say she has a dream, pursuing the future's especially beautiful life, such a thought. But perhaps this is a kind of fantasy, even illusion. Then at this time, some of today's young people, might they in life fundamentally not have thought about how much ability they actually have? Then they start fantasizing all the time. This is also related to our current education. Yesterday, some teachers also raised very pointed questions. I saw that when some teachers on the spot answered, they were rather indirect, rather gentle. But indeed, certain individual teachers' sense of responsibility toward current society, they have a sense of urgency that's very strong. At this time, I think many of us, including now so many young people's values, value orientations, what are they like? At this time, I very much hope, today, it's also said there are especially many university teachers and middle school teachers. I also raise a hope to the teachers. What's the hope? A couple days ago, I also mentioned not only giving them knowledge, but more importantly, now they need methods for being human. I seem to have seen before in Zizi Tongjian a sentence, and because Zizi Tongjian, actually it's not just about history, but even more, it analyzes the history of each dynasty. So what does it say here? It says, teachers of the classics are easy to obtain. Teachers of humanity are hard to find. This phrase is very necessary. Now, teachers who merely convey knowledge from textbooks to people, perhaps such teachers won't be especially lacking at many universities. Everyone knows among those present, everyone I've encountered today are all great professors, extremely remarkable. Each one is a professor from higher education institutions, deans, and so on. Very remarkable indeed. But what we need even more is to truly care about these children's mental health. These children, in the future, they'll all be masters of families. They're also the future successors of our human society. They're also our hope, also the hope of every nation. At this time, if their minds are truly unhealthy and they have such great vengefulness, hatred, and anger, then what will this society become? Perhaps sometimes we're too pessimistic. Actually, pessimistic people see this world as all darkness. Optimistic people see this world as all light. You see, just now when that professor was speaking, everyone was laughing. I now, perhaps as a Buddhist with renunciation, with the perspective of renunciation, perhaps everyone seems rather somber. Perhaps it's the speaker's style that's different. But no matter what, in some places now there are also some pessimistic phenomena. A while ago I saw a third grade elementary school child. When he came home, he cheerfully said to his mother, "Today I have very good news to tell you." His mother asked him, "What is it?" He said, "In our class, one of our classmates died." His mother told him, "Well, why are you so happy? What does this attitude of yours mean?" "I'm very happy today because I have one less competitor." What does this child actually represent? He represents that from one angle, our inner minds are a kind of darkness. So at this time, I think every teacher and every student, actually regarding saving humanity, we should have responsibility. Indeed, each of us, it's not that our society now can't be saved, has already collapsed. Nor is it an era that's terminally ill. But in this current era, if we all work together, including those of us studying religion, and you authoritative teachers at various universities, if we all have a sense of responsibility to save society, to save humanity, actually, this should be necessary. But whether it's our educational targets or social media guidance, every time online when some relatively positive, proactive, charitable, joyful news appears, everyone seems dismissive, indifferent, not even interested in sharing it. But When something rather angry or rather lamentable appears, even resentful things, everyone frantically shares them. A while ago in the Tibetan area, there was a girl who, when releasing lives, spent about several million. I don't know if it was her own money or someone else's. As a result, many young people in the Tibetan area started cursing her. You shouldn't release animals. You shouldn't be a kind person. Kind people are very fragile. Or you shouldn't put this money into the hands of butchers. When doing evil deeds, everyone pays great attention, no problem. When doing good deeds, not a single person, except I seem to see online 2 or 3 people praising. Many others, logically speaking, the Tibetan area now also has certain changes. It's not like what we sometimes imagine, very pure under blue skies and white clouds. There are some elderly people who live a kind of happy, joyful life under faith. But many young people, basically due to the clash of different values, due to environmental changes and the impact of Western culture, when they do good deeds, they start refuting her in Tibetan. Even many so-called religious people also stood up and said, you shouldn't release sheep, this kind of situations. So sometimes there may be different voices. Many people now say online, is it worth it? The majority of people say, not worth it. So everyone feels this is probably something not worth doing. A few years ago, we know 3 18-year-old university students saved 2 children. At that time, everyone felt it wasn't worth it because these university students shouldn't have been worth it. Previously, in the 1980s, there was also a university student who saved, it seems, a 70-year-old person who worked in sewage. Everyone felt that such a young person saving such a person, not worth it. In the end, most people thought it wasn't worth it. But actually, is it worth it or not? From an individual perspective, of course, each person's life is extremely precious. But from the perspective of our social atmosphere, we should distinguish clearly between light and darkness, or positive and negative. Otherwise, as some professors also said today, between humans and animals, there's still a certain difference. Animals may only have physical responses and some sensations, but what makes us more advanced than animals is mental feelings. Moreover, these mental feelings, what we need to elevate even more is the distinction between good and evil. So on this point, it may be very necessary for everyone in certain situations and circumstances as teachers, while guiding in your own specialties, to also instill an education of goodness and beauty. I think this is also very important. As some university students, actually as some teachers just mentioned, if we truly do charity and altruism, the happiness of our own minds arises naturally. If our own minds are happy, perhaps in this world, I may not necessarily need everything I want to be realized in such a short time. But I also live very happily. Such responsibility. Actually, each of us should have it. On this point, I also think it's very necessary now to have a course on happiness. My viewpoint has always been this way. Of course, some teachers today also have different views. This is completely fine. In this world, we have different ideological collisions. Different viewpoints can also exist. This is very reasonable. It's also open-minded, truth-seeking, and inclusive mentality. I think this is very good. But my principle should be according to Buddhism's Mahayana thought. Toward all sentient beings, we do our utmost to help. Even if we can help just one sentient being, this is also reasonable. Even in this society, if someone treats you especially badly, I should still treat them well. Although this kind of practice isn't so easy, some ancient sages and worthies have actually long given us examples. Everyone knows Socrates. Once when Socrates was crossing a river, he accidentally slipped in the water. Then struggling in the water, he loudly called out, "Help!" At that time, nearby, there happened to be a fisherman. This fisherman not only didn't go to save him, but immediately turned around and left. Later, Socrates' other disciples pulled him out of the river. After being rescued, after some time, once when Socrates and his students were walking together by the river, they heard someone nearby had also fallen into the river and was struggling there. Then they tried to throw a bamboo pole into the river. They tried everything to pull this person out. When they pulled him out, they discovered it was actually the fisherman who hadn't saved Socrates earlier. At this time, the disciples felt very regretful. If we'd known it was this person, we shouldn't have saved him. Look, when our teacher was near death in the river that day, he didn't save him. Why should we save him today? Later, what did Socrates say? We should save him. It's precisely because the difference between us and him is here. So I think when many people are doing good deeds, there will be others misunderstanding, others wronging us, others slandering us, others all kinds of defaming words toward us. There will be. This is unavoidable. The atmosphere of this society sometimes may not be as we imagine. But our own strong will and our own wisdom shouldn't be swayed by anyone. Previously, there was a great master of Tibetan Buddhism who was imprisoned for 21 years. Later, he was released. After his release, someone interviewed him. Throughout your entire time in prison, what did you fear most? He said that what I feared most was the people in prison who harmed me. I feared losing compassion toward those who harmed me. Actually, this probably isn't what we fear most. What we fear most is not having enough to eat in prison, or being hungry, etc. Probably thinking about ourselves. But a true noble being to others in such a way treats all people with compassion. This is our core values. Actually, if our core values are established on altruism, then this person should be very happy. If we establish them on the selfish, on ego clinging, or on a kind of coercive, self-inflated foundation, perhaps this person is very miserable. In Buddhism, there's something called the 8 worldly concerns. What are the 8 worldly concerns? I very much like others praising me, but don't like others criticizing me. I very much like others valuing me, but don't like others discriminating against me or scorning me. I very much like enjoying excessive happiness myself, but don't like experiencing suffering. I very much like succeeding myself, but don't like failure. These 8 dharmas we call the 8 worldly concerns, unmoved by the 8 winds. If in our minds we always especially pay attention to these 8 winds, our minds will become more and more fragile. When our minds become more and more fragile, the suffering we experience becomes more and more intense. This is what's often called in the world soft power and hard power. The software of our inner minds is insufficient. No compassion, no wisdom, no confidence, no ability. At this time, even if your hardware is all complete and intact, everything is fully equipped, all of it, including your money, your car, your work, your parents' family. Everything is especially good. But can your true happiness, your true life values appear? It's hard to say. If you yourself are very strong, very happy, even if you live in especially ordinary housing and your daily salary is also very unsatisfactory, your mind won't have greater pressures. So in a certain sense, indeed, our current values can't all be established on external money. It should be on inner satisfaction. Of course, inner satisfaction are basic living needs and basic living conditions. These cannot be lacking. Buddhism also won't have you become so poor that in the end you can't even afford to eat, that you don't even have basic life necessities. This isn't what Buddhism wants. Not falling into extremes, not falling into extreme lifestyles. This is what Buddhism has always emphasized throughout history. So today I'm also very happy to speak with everyone. After learning like this, no matter from which school of thought, you yourself may, in a certain sense, have some goals and positioning for pursuing life or regarding your values. You'll have opportunities to rethink. Very possibly you'll rethink what you've been pursuing before. But now, in this era, with my abilities and my wisdom, with all my resources, what kind of life do I really want to seek? At this time, this may be extremely, extremely important to you. Because if we blindly only talk about so-called success studies, some current success studies talk completely and solely about money. People with money are successful. Okay, if there's no money, even if all the, including kind character, healthy body and mind, strong willpower, compassionate heart, and you have a harmonious family, peaceful life, etc., if all these are fully possessed, everyone seems dismissive, nothing remarkable. Everyone looks down on them. If society has become like this, perhaps this environment indeed needs some adjustment. But at this time, if we rely on our subjectivity to seek life, perhaps sometimes in some religions, in some universal concepts, including in the writings of ancient sages of Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, we can also experience true happiness. So I think our true happiness, I feel it comes from wisdom. And this wisdom also comes from listening to all the teachers, different voices, different heartfelt voices. Each of us has also gained knowledge to different degrees. This point is also very important. At the same time, I also hope that teachers now also value teaching. Otherwise, in relatively remote places like my hometown and its surroundings, in these many places, including some middle school teachers, elementary school teachers, their values aren't in teaching. They very much want to make money, opening coffee shops, opening internet cafes. Every day, they're just thinking about making money. In other words, stock trading, doing business. They don't assign homework to students all day long, don't care, their hearts aren't in it. Some teachers even don't teach well in class, but like to give tutoring sessions, because for tutoring, I hear there are also quite different levels of fees. Moreover, if these fees accumulate slowly after 3 years, one can buy a 200,000 yuan car. Of course, as worldly people, charging a little corresponding tutoring fee, charging a little corresponding tuition, I think these are normal, but excessively. And as an engineer of the human soul, the things you should be doing, you're not doing them now. Then, between teachers and students, apart from a trade relationship of mutual exploitation, the entire teacher-student relationship gradually fades away. Finally, what kind of path will we walk? It's hard to say. I believe that in big cities like Shanghai and at higher education institutions like this, there won't be such things. But it's also hard to say. In some of our remote places, perhaps you Shanghainese, yesterday or the day before, there was also a Shanghainese person who said about a Tibetan person, a singer or something, saying, your remote place, this and that. Finally, that Tibetan person got angry. There was a lot of this online. Tibet doesn't have any famous celebrities. And then he started arguing with them. Sometimes, indeed, people from Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, they themselves feel, on one hand, there's a lot of pressure. It's not easy for people here to survive. You need certain wisdom, certain abilities to have room to survive. But on the other hand, perhaps toward other cities, other schools, other people, they seem to look down on them. There's such arrogance. For example, what school nearby? I'm from Shanghai, I'm this or that. In that case, in Buddhism, we say greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy. These are the 5 poisons. These are toxic. If there's toxicity, then as some teachers just compared, if poison is always in the mind or poison is always in books, then wherever you go, it's a hazard. Therefore, whether we're people from big cities or people from remote places or some surrounding second-tier cities, third-tier cities, such people, all people, including university teachers, I think the best, most important thing is to care about students. If in your eyes students aren't very important, then you don't even have the qualifications to be a teacher. Actually, a teacher, if it's a good teacher, I think their contribution to society is very great. Because they teach and nurture people, this is now also very difficult to achieve. So it's very necessary that some students have this gratitude toward teachers. I often say gratitude toward teachers and gratitude toward parents we should never forget. Otherwise, now there are also many ungrateful people. Today, I saw a Tibetan post. What did this Tibetan post say? Feed a dog for 3 days, and for 3 years, it won't forget its master. But raise a person for 3 years, and in 3 days, they'll forget their master. This phrase, in a certain sense, may be satirical toward us, but in another sense, perhaps some of our teachers painstakingly teach them, painstakingly nurture them. As a result, after graduation, not only do they not have gratitude toward you, they even come with an especially dissatisfied attitude, possibly slandering such behaviors. This is indeed especially frightening. So whether as teachers or as students, we should have a heart of gratitude, especially toward parents. I often think that actually in this world, those with the greatest kindness are mothers and teachers. How many tears has a mother shed for us? For example, the first time before you came to this world, the tears she shed should be tears of hope, hoping you'd come to this world soon. When you came to this world, when you cried wah wah, many mothers, tears of excitement start flowing. Then, when you're in the world and don't behave well, she'll have tears of sorrow. When once your career succeeds, you establish a family and career, at this time she'll have tears of being moved. Or when she's old and you haven't given to her well, repaid her kindness, she may shed tears of despair. I see many elderly people in the West. They can't even shed tears anymore. In the end, perhaps they all flow inwards. So sometimes we should have a heart of repaying kindness, be grateful to my teachers, grateful to our parents, because they give us the opportunity to live in this human world. If we didn't have their kindness, perhaps we'd live very miserably. Our physical survival comes from relying on our parents. Our wisdom survival comes from relying on all our teachers. So from the heart, many keynote speakers today are also our teachers. I'm grateful to all of you.